Cannabis is like this scalpel in this divided world when nobody agrees on anything and everybody's so divided. So many people got killed, so many people got deported, so many people got arrested to build this $6 billion industry that is in New York.
That's really dope. I didn't have conflict resolution as like a subject in my school.
We already had the Cultura, now we mixed it with the corporate. We started bringing those people in the mix. I'm a corner boy with a corner office, but I used to be on a corner just like them.
Wait, hold up. I'm a corner boy with a corner office. That's a bar right there. Okay.
Can't give away everything, but
all right, come on. It's banking on Cultura.
And remember, you're too blessed to be stressed. Things will get greater later. You just gotta always choose happy.
All right, guys, welcome back to Banking on Cultura. I am your host, Victoria Jen Rodriguez. And you know, on this show, we talk all things Latino culture, the complexity, the vibrancy, entrepreneurship, and of course, all the bochinche in between. Now, today's guest is going to basically give us a mini mastermind on how we should be investing our coins. And it's probably going to be untraditional than what you might be thinking. But it is an industry that is popping, that is booming, and something that our community needs to be involved in. So let's get into this. He is the CEO and co-founder of the Happy Munkey brand, an internationally known New York City lifestyle company that is synonymous with cannabis culture. He is widely recognized for his deep relationships with the international cannabis elite scene and his successful experience in music, hospitality, and event production. He provides corporate cannabis access to the authentic NYC cannabis scene. The Happy Munkey team has been awarded prestigious recognition, such as the Silver Clio Award for innovative immersion experiences, specifically at the Van Gogh exhibit. He is basically, if you haven't gathered this already, he is basically the man in the cannabis industry connecting politicians, executives, creatives, and athletes to a space that has been once deemed ghetto to now solid gold. I welcome Vladimir Bautista. Welcome to the scene.
Thank you for having me, Victoria Jen. I'm honored to be here. I'm banking on Cultura because that's the whole motto of my business. I'm banking on Cultura. So it's an honor to be here on your platform.
The pleasure is all mine, darling. So you have to start us off with some bochinche. That's how we like to kick things off. So give us some tea. Give us something we don't know.
Well, a lot of people don't know that one of the best classes I had in school that I got the best grades on was conflict resolution. And I think that's why I'm so good at, leading teams, helping different walks of life meet, and get to know each other because, everybody has all these different views and perspectives, but 99% of all the problems in life are communication. And I think I'm a really good communicator and I help cut through all the BS.
That's really dope. I didn't have conflict resolution as like a subject in my school. What was this, like in high school? In high school. Interesting.
I went to G-Dubs, George Washington High School, uptown.
Right, because you're a native of New York.
Correct.
Dominican, uptown.
Harlem native from Sugar Hill, 139 from Broadway.
Ooh, okay. So you have made a name for yourself in this industry. And what's really interesting about your story is you actually used to hustle.
Correct.
So you used to hustle, and now this has been legalized to an extent. I mean, there's still a lot of... Is it completely legalized?
It's completely legal on a New York State level. It is not legal federally yet, but as far as New York State, it's completely legal.
Okay. So traveling with...
If you're not going to another state that's legal, you can't have issues.
Okay. We got to make that clear because it's a little confusing out here because some people got it legal, some people don't. Okay. So grew up in New York City, Dominican, used to hustle, and now you are on the business side of bringing this industry to light in a way where our community can benefit. Right? Because back in the day, we used to actually go to jail for consuming, for selling, for all the things. And now, is that like bonkers to you? Like, is it mind-boggling to you that you used to get in trouble for this and now you're like the face?
I would have never thought, to be honest with you. It's something that boggles me to this day because they normalized, persecuting and over-arresting our communities. Not just like if you were selling it, even if you were just consuming it. And now I come to find out that I thought because, it was more local back then, more uptown, they didn't go out much. I thought that was happening in all communities in New York. But now I talk to my friends that live in Soho, live in Chelsea, live in Tribeca, like, oh no, they told us to turn it off and they never arrested us. So it shows that they were just targeting our communities and making up these quotas and over-policing, over-arresting us.
So give us some more historical context of how cannabis has played a role in our community and communities of color in general.
Well, like I just mentioned, they built this on basically the NYPD specifically. It happened nationally, but I'm just talking about New York. They built their quotas on targeting minority communities. And by default, basically normalized it. People getting arrested at an alarming rate. And now we're realizing that people were just medicating the community. People were just medicating themselves because you never heard of anybody pass away from using cannabis or nothing like that. It was just like a tool to oppress our communities. And now that it's legal, it's time that the same people that suffered for it get the opportunity to become upstanding citizens and make all the money off of it, because it wouldn't be fair if now that it's legal, so many people got killed, so many people got deported, so many people got arrested to build this $6 billion industry that is in New York. So now I don't think it's right that people that are not from our communities are running in the majority of the businesses. And, that's why I'm trying to educate, not only by speaking on platforms like this, but being an example of, like you said, I used to hustle. I've been arrested over 22 times for cannabis. And, that limited me in life, like from getting into good schools, from getting good job employment. So now it's like I'm going back to my community with all this information that I've gathered in the last 6-7 years to be an example and show people that there's another way and how this can help repair the harm that the war on drugs and war on cannabis did to our community. So that's my goal. And that's why, one of our saying is, just like your show, we don't do it for the clout, we do it for the culture. Because if we don't really take advantage of this opportunity, it's going to be really sad, because this might be the biggest transfer of wealth that we'll see in our lifetime. Because as you know, because you obviously study entrepreneurship and all the other businesses, they're already established. They already have gatekeepers, these other industries. They already have Fortune 500. So for people like us, it makes it much harder to get through all those barriers. But this is in its infancy, and we have the chance to be the gatekeepers and be those Fortune 500 companies, because it's such a new industry. And nowadays that's rare to be at the inception of an industry.
Interesting. So for some people, they might hear that number 6 billion and be like really intimidated. So first of all, who makes that number? Where does that number come from?
So that number comes from, right now in the legal market, in the last 2 years, there's only like 50 legal stores. They've grossed about $150 million. That number comes from intel from like the legacy market, aka the illicit market. New York's the highest consuming city in the world. And so they mix the consumption numbers with different numbers as far as like what they find and they seize throughout the years, and that's where they get that estimate from.
Okay, got it. So like things they used to seize, like they used to run up in people's spots and like seize from drug dealers, and they're like, oh, okay, this is what could be the market price for it.
Plus when you add up the consumers.
Interesting. Okay, so what I thought was really interesting about New York, and if you guys don't know about this, pay attention, especially to those of you who are in New York. They decided to give you licenses, but they wanted to give it to only formerly incarcerated folks, right? Which I thought was really interesting, but also super dope, right? Like, obviously, you guys, I think, should get priority because you lost parts of your life as a result of it being illegal, and now it's legal. So they were only providing licenses to people who were previously incarcerated. But talk to us about that, because I've heard, kind of through the grapevine, they're still trying to figure it out. And I think that's like, the inevitable thing that comes with a new industry and something that is so brand new. To your point, people are figuring it out as they go, right? They're flying the plane as they're building it. So talk to us about like your licensing experience. How long did it take? What was the investment? And like realistically, how can somebody get put onto this?
Well, it's a really loaded question, but you're definitely right about the nuance of it and the new industry part. So remember, there are about 33 other states where cannabis is legal, something like along those lines. No state has attempted to do what New York did. What they usually do is there's these companies that are called MSOs, large corporations that run multi-state operations. So usually they let them go first. And that is, like I said, like letting a Fortune 500 company go first, and then let people like us in 3, 4, 5 years later down the line, when all the real estate's gone, when the first mover advantage is gone, and etc. New York said, no, we want to make sure that the people that were harmed by the war on drugs get the first opportunity. And it was not just having a record. In order to qualify for, it's called a card license, you had to have 2 years of at least owning 10 or 20% of a business and a record.
Oh, okay.
And you had to be a New York resident for over 5 years or something like that.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. All right.
So they wanted to make sure that it was people actually from New York and not people from out of town. Mm-hmm. They actually wanted to make sure that, because it's, as you have this show and you know how complex business is, that not only they have the record, but they also have a decent business acumen to be able to operate something like this. So that was the two main factors. And, I applied as soon as it came out. I think I was like number 3 to apply, and I didn't receive it until August of last year. I was the last one to receive it. So it's been a lot of waiting. And
how long was that time period from the time you applied to the time you actually got the license?
It was probably like a year.
Okay.
And then after I got the license, then a lawsuit happened, which paused the whole program. Some war veterans basically sued, said that they were discriminated against because people that, like I said, look like us went first. And as you can imagine, Black and brown people are not usually first in any shape, form, or fashion, or ex-convicts. So you can imagine there was a large part of the population that wasn't happy about that, but that got dealt with. But for a minute, it was paused because of that. And now that got through, and now we finally are secured our license. And I had a tough decision to make, right? And it goes back to the name of your show, Banking on Cultura, where just like I have 6-7 years saying, we don't do it for the clout, we do it for the culture. And me and you know that it's easy to say that as a sound bite, but it's another thing to put your money where your mouth is. So I had the option of opening up in Times Square, Tribeca, Soho, anywhere, and, just chasing the money. And I was like, but would I really be doing it for La Cultura if I did that? So I know after my research that people see no value in our people, in our community. So a majority of people didn't even consider it. And I was like, I have to be the example, and I have to bring all this information and be the example for our community. So I went all the way the opposite of everybody else did. And I'm opening up an id1 in Dykeman because they don't see value on people, but I do, because I know that we can do anything anybody else can do. And we have a vibrant community if you understand it. And that was a tough decision because, like I said, it's easy for the soundbite, but now I had to put my money where my mouth is.
Mi gente, I need your help. Look, the real game behind podcasts is we need to really understand our demo, aka you, our audience, so that when we go out to sponsors who help us put on this amazing show and deliver this content to you, that they can clearly understand who we serve and what is significant to you and what you value. And the only way for us to get that information is for you to give it to us. So we just created this survey. I'll put it in the show notes. It will take you less than 3 minutes, literally, but it will be so helpful for us to get a better understanding of what it is that you care about, what's important to you, what do you value. so that when we're out in these streets trying to secure the big bag and get sponsors for this show, they know exactly who our audience is and what you care about. So we can bring you the best products, we can bring you the best organizations that are out here serving the cultura, the community, you. So please take a moment and fill out the survey. I'll link it in the show notes. Appreciate you. Mi gente, I've got the perfect freebie for you. So I just dropped a 17-page workbook to help you get your mind right, especially in this climate of so much uncertainty. So if you are an aspiring or current entrepreneur and you're just feeling stuck, you're not feeling too good about what the future holds, and all the turmoil, the politics, all of it is just throwing you off your game, this workbook is actually going to act as a journal for you. It covers goal setting, efficiency tips, how to manage your time, financial management tips, strategies on how to wrap your head around the next big thing that's coming down the pipeline to bring you consistent revenue in your business. It covers what you should be doubling down on in terms of your well-being, and it is just my favorite jam-packed journal full of marketing and sales strategy to help you get clarity, but most importantly, to help you secure the big bag. So make sure to tap on the link in the show notes. I've linked it there so that you guys can get really clear on the top hacks that you can put into play in 2024 to set yourself up for success. I hope you love it. How much does it cost to like go through the licensing process and then actually get the dispensary and run a full shop? Like, what is that investment?
Well,
look like?
it just depends, right? Because there's different routes. So I took the independent route. So it was only like $2,000 for the application, right? But then after you receive the application, now they go, after you receive the license, they say, well, where's your real estate at? And that gets really complicated and really expensive. I'll tell you why. Remember, it's not federally legal. So whatever property you use can't have a mortgage on it because it's not federally legal, because the bank can call a loan on it. So you have to find something that's not 250 square feet from a church, not 500 square feet from a school, not 1,000 square feet from another dispensary, and not have a mortgage or have any type of liens or issues. So that really narrows your real estate down.
Right.
And landlords know that you are in a business that has limited access to real estate. So they hit you with something called a green tax, which means like if this place costs $15,000, you're in the cannabis industry. We know you need this. You don't have many options. It's $25,000 for you, Victoria. So just giving you an idea, and then you start there. Then you have to get a construction and a design going. You have to meet certain requirements. You have to have a vault. You have to have a certain number of security factors. You have to have a certain number of cameras. You have to have an ADA bathroom. So all this
What's
stuff.
the ADA bathroom?
ADA bathroom meaning like somebody that's handicapped can use the restroom.
Okay. And why do you need a vault?
Oh, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of cash, because, you know, everybody is not always, you know, sometimes you can take credit, sometimes you can't, you know what I mean? So most of the time it's cash and debit. And so you need to have these things secured by law before you even open. So all these costs add up.
Okay, so if I'm an investor and I'm like, yo, I want to get a dispensary, I'm going to hook up with somebody who was incarcerated, right? Because I've never been incarcerated. How much money should I like be thinking about to like invest in something like this? Not invest in the industry, but invest in like a dispensary.
You should be thinking about a minimum of like $500,000 to $1 million at a minimum.
Okay.
Because you have to calculate, you know, you have to put a deposit down. What happens is a lot of times the entity cannot have any history. It has to be a brand new entity that doesn't have anything else connected to it. So that means that the entity probably doesn't have any credit. So the landlord's also going to tell you, all right, Victoria, I understand all this. Let me get a 12-month deposit.
Wow.
So I'm just giving you different so you can add up, because it all it can all vary in scale and money. But that's why I gave you like $500,000 to $1 million, because all these things add up.
Interesting. Okay.
But now I'll give you the flip side.
Okay.
There's a flip side to everything, right? So why would you want to do that? Because the numbers state that I give you like, there's some people that's not doing the greatest, but there are some people that's doing great. There's a dispensary that just reported their last year income. It's called Housing Works down here, and they grossed $24 million last year.
Wow.
There is another one in Long Island called Strange Stars. They're grossing about $3, $4, $5, $6 million a month.
A month?
A month.
Wow.
So what I'm trying to say is like there's an upside if you do it right, but
you got to go through all of the red tape, and then like what's you in there.
And also it's capital intense, but you know in business you can't make big money without putting up big money. So that's like the variables there.
Interesting. So if someone doesn't have that type of capital, but they want to get involved, they understand the significance of this moment, like where should they start?
So first of all, either you would have to go and find venture capitalists that, maybe could fund you, or you would go and they had a program called DASNY where the state, I think they did this for like 150 people, for 150 people, where they put up the money, but now they're partners with you on the dispensary, and they put up the capital and they put up the real estate, and you just operate it. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but it's just, all of them have different ramifications on your profit, right? If you put up your money, you can make more. If you don't, you'll make less, but you don't have to put up the money, and that's all the variables. Oh, and there's something very important too that New York did, because of course they were worried about predators, as we call them in the legal world. Like you said, just using straw, black and brown people just to really run the whole thing. That's not possible the way New York did it. By law, the person that's on the license cannot go under 51% of equity. So they can never lose control, no matter how much money anybody put up, because we know in the business world how
that's what I was thinking when you were saying someone can go to a venture capital and they'll put up all the capital and then you basically run it, but essentially like they would own the majority, right? Is what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, okay, so you basically like still working for somebody else, but with this ownership, that's actually really smart. Okay. Interesting. So what is your goal with this? Like, where are you trying to take this? So you open up, when is this set to open, by the way?
We don't have a date, but we hope like around the summer sometime, because it's like I said, it's a lot of variables, construction, build out, whatever. But the goal is by the summer.
By this summer.
Yes.
Okay. And what are your projections telling you? Like, what are you hoping for?
Well, I'm not really getting caught up in that as much. What I'm really hoping for is this, right? Like, I'm going to give you an example, like, because I feel like it's bigger than me, Happy Munkey, and profit. I feel like when you put the people first, the profit will follow. The reality is that 40% of all the taxes earned from every legal dispensary goes to communities most harmed by the war on cannabis and the war on drugs. 4% of that goes directly to the community where the dispensary operates at. So what does that mean? I just finished telling you earlier that the state grossed $150 million in the last 2 years. You know how much money in would have made? Zero, because nobody was operating up there. So we're talking about real money that can really help the community, because, if every $1 million, 40,000, 10 million, 400,000, we're talking about real money that goes to schools, parks, etc. What am I looking forward to? That I am going to employ people from the community, that you can come to my dispensary and you don't have to speak English. If you speak Spanish, somebody will be able to help you understand how this benefits you in Spanish. And just like I said, showing people that don't see value in our communities, that our community is amazing, robust, and is capable of doing anything that any other community can. And being an example, like you said, I used to hustle, and showing the blueprint. Like I always tell people, like right now we hit a crossroads, right, Victoria? So the crossroads is like, I give you the example of the prohibition of alcohol, right? So there was two different types of people that benefited off of this and had two different routes, and you can go either way. So you had Al Capone. He did really well doing prohibition. He made a ton of money. But when that ended, his reign ended and his generational wealth ended right there when that run stopped. Then you had somebody like Joe Kennedy, JF Kennedy's father, that did the exact same thing, But he did transition when alcohol went legal and he put his son in the White House. I'm trying to be more of the Dominican Joe Kennedy than the Al Capone because that's a short run and be an example to show others that if I did it, they can do it too because I'm no different than them. I'm a corner boy with a corner office, but I used to be on a corner just like them.
Wait, hold up. I'm a corner boy with a corner office. That's a bar right there. Okay. I like that. So many directions I want to go with this because I want the community to like understand the significance of why now and why you need to pay attention to this. I feel like we're being distracted, like AI, this, that. And this is like brewing. It's like bubbling. It's happening like literally right in our backyard. So how do people get involved?
That's a great question, Victoria Jen. And like we've already started those efforts, right? That's what I've been doing for the last 6-7 years. For those that don't know, like Happy Munkey was established in 2017. Cannabis didn't legalize till 2021. So that whole time we were fighting to get it legalized. One example is like there were two bills when on the ballot when Cuomo was in office. There was one called the CRTA, and the one we have now is the MRTA, which is one of the most equitable bills in the country. Cuomo was trying to pass a CRTA. Why? Because it didn't have much social equity. People that looked like me and you were not going to get many licenses. There was not going to be such a big effort on repairing the harm and war on drugs. And the licenses was going to get auctioned off to the highest bidders, a.k.a. billionaires only in New York. So we caught wind of that. Not us, many other groups too, but we were one of them. And we started a petition. We got like over 1,000 signatures. This was like during the pandemic, like hundreds of thousands of people to repost it online. So Cuomo was like, who the F is Happy Munkey? What's going on here? Like, we're stirring things up because it was that big of an opportunity. So now what have we done afterwards? Recently last year on 4/18, we partnered with Community Board 9 up in Harlem, Columbia University. We did an event at their building on 125th, and we had opening statements by Congressman Espaillat. We had Council Member Braille from up there. We had the Manhattan Borough President, Mark Levine. We flew in a doctor named Rachel Knox that is an expert on the endocannabinoid system. And we had Deshita Dawson there. She's the czar for New York City of cannabis. So what's been happening, Victoria, the reason that people don't know and all those distractions is not by a mistake. It's by design. I'm going to tell you why. I had the fortune in my team that we were focused more down here. And all the information during all these years was down here. All the conferences were down here. When you add the fact that, you want to come to one of these conferences down here, anywhere from $500 to $1,200 a ticket, which we know who that price is out, right, Victoria? People that look like me and you, so they've been bottling the information. So that's why we did this event up there. We had translation services for people that didn't speak English, and we did it all for free on 125th Street because we know that we have to bring the information to our people. Our people are not dumb. Our people are not savvy. It's just that they're not bringing the information and the access to all these things, and that's part of what we're trying to do because it's like I said, they had no problems. Like I told you, like I said, the places where they told the people during Prohibition, just turn it off. We won't arrest you. Now they have all the conferences to make all the money. And then our places where they arrested us all at, no, they don't need conferences up there. They don't need the information up there. Those people want to know what to do with it, Victoria. But we see it different. And that's part of what we're working on doing here.
So the way people can get involved is to hook up with Happy Munkey.
And go to the other organizations,
right?
exactly.
And other organizations that are leading kind of the charge on this and putting community first and providing the access and the information. Okay, so conflict resolution. I want to circle back to that because a lot of what you've been able to accomplish, you've had to manage relationships.
Yes.
And like you said, cannabis elite, politicians, athletes in your bio, like how I read it out. So this conflict resolution, I feel like is serving you in many ways. Talk to us about that because politics is tricky. And there's a lot of like, oh, yes, of course, absolutely. A lot of smiling, they'll kiss your baby, and then nothing happens. So how have you been able to manage relationships in such a way where you guys have been able to achieve this level of success so far?
Well, I would have to take you back to the beginning.
Take us back, way
so the
back.
beginning of Happy Munkey was 2017. And what I like to say is that, and this is going to make sense to you, Victoria, that cannabis is like this scalpel in this divided world where nobody agrees on anything and everybody's so divided. It cuts through a lot of these divisions because like a majority of the population agrees on it, and you're able to get people together in a room that under other circumstances wouldn't be together, especially in 2017 before prohibition, because everybody was in their own silos doing it on the low. So what we did, we had a consumption lounge right here, actually down the block on 38th Street, where it was like, if you know, you know. And at the beginning, it started like just family and friends and people we knew. So what happened was my partner Ramon went to like Holland, Amsterdam. He saw they had like cafes out there, and he's a little bit of an introvert, but he liked that because he sat at this cafe. Like I said, these people from all different parts of the world, but you have this thing in common. You're all here because you can see in common. So now you spark a conversation, and now you're talking to people you would never talk to any other circumstances because you have this thing in common. So my other partners, it was already a recording studio. So we were like, you know what? We have the real estate, we have the cannabis. My partner has this idea. Let's try this. You know, we got everything to gain, nothing to lose. And it was a hit. And we started doing it once a week. We started doing it once a month, then once a week, then 7 days a week, 200-300 people a night, till Forbes in 2019 called us the Studio 54 of cannabis.
What?
And that was the reason, because what happened was we started with family and friends, whatever, then found out about these conferences. A Jewish friend of mine named Josh Teberberg, shout out to him, the metabolist, he was like, yo, let's go to this cannabis conference at the time, like it's like a foreign term, like, you know, we don't know this is this. It's like, yeah, they're in Tribeca, let's go. Boom. So I go there, and I think I'm gonna see like hippies and a few people from the hood, and it's like dudes with suits from Wall Street. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? There's a cannabis conference. And there was somebody speaking on a panel. And the guy next to me with the suit on, he says, you see that company, they're all right, but they're not doing that good. I said, how do you know they're going? He said, look at their stocks. I said, oh, their stocks? So then that's when we saw like, because like I told you, the information is not getting to us. And I'm like, oh, there's stocks. So this is like something way bigger coming. So then what happened was we already had the Cultura. Now we mixed it with the corporate. We started bringing those people in the mix. And like the great equalizes cannabis, because under no other circumstances would a gangster, a politician, a doctor, a lawyer be in the same room, but they all loved the cannabis. They all had to do it in the closet, and they found this sanctuary where they're safe and they have a common denominator. And you know what you realize a lot of times, Victoria, as you've seen in life, when you sit down and you start talking to somebody, everybody's got some type of issues, and they all trying to smoke a joint and forget about them. That's unanimous, whether you're white, blue, yellow, black, whatever, preference you have of sex, religion, that is unanimous, especially in a place like New York. So I think that helped people see like, oh, these people are not that different than me. Oh, these people are not that different. And you know, we all have this thing in common, and like we're all here all together, the good, the bad, the ugly, the black, and nothing's happening. So why is this thing? So I think that really started changing the mindset and the stigma of like whatever fear people had of cannabis being so accessible.
Interesting. Okay. So folks are the great equalizer. I like how you position that. I think that's actually really spot on. I never thought about it that way. So how this conflict resolution, like how have you, so you started these kind of lounges, Studio 54 of cannabis, right? So you got the people in the room, but when things started getting serious, because when you're sitting around, you know, smoking a joint and thinking like, oh wow, this is really cool, it's a different type of vibe and conversation when you're sitting about like capital that's involved and laws that are being passed, etc. So what are your top tips for managing relationships from so many different walks of life and industries, and how you've been able to like mobilize these people to this common thing. Like, how have you been managing those relationships?
Well, I'm a man of the people, but the truth is that
Mi gente, I need your help. Look, the real game behind podcasts is we need to really understand our demo, aka you, our audience, so that when we go out to sponsors who help us put on this amazing show and deliver this content to you, that they can clearly understand who we serve and what is significant to you and what you value. And the only way for us to get that information is for you to give it to us. So we just created this survey. I'll put it in the show notes. It will take you less than 3 minutes, literally, but it will be so helpful for us to get a better understanding of what it is that you care about, what's important to you, what do you value, so that when we're out in these streets trying to secure the big bag and get sponsors for this show, they know exactly who our audience is and what you care about. So we can bring you the best products, we can bring you the best organizations that are out here serving the cultura, the community, you. So please take a moment and fill out the survey. I'll link it in the show notes. Appreciate you. Mi gente, I've got the perfect freebie for you. So I just dropped a 17-page workbook to help you get your mind right, especially in this climate of so much uncertainty. So if you are an aspiring or current entrepreneur and you're just feeling stuck, you're not feeling too good about what the future holds, and all the turmoil, the politics, all of it is just throwing you off your game, this workbook is actually going to act as a journal for you. It covers goal setting, efficiency tips, how to manage your time, financial management tips, strategies on how to wrap your head around the next big thing that's coming down the pipeline to bring you consistent revenue in your business. It covers what you should be doubling down on in terms of your well-being, and it is just my favorite jam-packed journal full of marketing and sales strategy to help you get clarity, but most importantly, to help you secure the big bag. So make sure to tap on the link in the show notes. I've linked it there so that you guys can get really clear on the top hacks that you can put into play in 2024 to set yourself up for success. I hope you love it.
when you think about it, especially in a place like New York, like I mentioned, like when you go behind the layers of humanity, everybody like wants at the core the same things. People want to be safe. People love community. People love el coro y la chelcha and having fun. So I just feel like I used those things to show people that us and people that look at us are no threat, showed our people that these people are not all the big devils that they tell us to be. Like, there are bad people on both sides. There are good people on both sides. And we just have to look for those good people and work with them to change things. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth. Like, some of the people that were my mentors in this industry on the legal side and the corporate side were women. Like, because women had a lot of the similar struggles that we had in our communities, because even though they were not exactly the same as us, like in the struggle, they had their own struggles, because as no matter how good they were still women. And we know before that still made it a lot harder for them to climb up the ladder. So a lot of them were like, we want to support you, like, you know, different Caucasian women do. So I'm like, why? It's because we don't want this industry ran by white men. And they supported me and they helped me get into rooms I wouldn't been able to get to. So that's why, you know, I love females. They're the creative everything. And that definitely helped me, you know, get into and look at things different and get into rooms I usually wouldn't get into.
But how have you, like, what are your strategies for how you're managing these relationships? Because you're dealing with so many people, so many different personalities, especially when you infuse politicians and all the agendas that come with that. Like, how are you managing those relationships? I want to give people like some game on how to manage these type of relationships.
Well, I give you some few ones because, you know, you can't give away everything. But
all right, come on, it's Banking on Cultura.
But one of the main things I think people need to understand is that we're all human beings, and you can't wait till you need something to call somebody, you know. I know sometimes people assume things, and like there's a saying, they say like, what do you get a person that has everything? You know what you get him, Victoria? anything because nobody gets them anything because people think they don't need anything. So I say that to say this, like a birthday text, a holiday text, like, going to see them, just thinking about them. People really have lost the idea of how important that is, because now you think because you like a post on Victoria or you put a comment, like that's sufficient, but it's not the same as if I call Victoria to see how she's doing, hit her on her birthday to make sure she's okay, just she's doing something, just come through. And I think that I'm really good at following up and staying in touch with people just in general, not just when I need something for business. And I think we've lost that, and I think that's so important.
How do you remember? No, for real. Like, how do you remember? Because you meet so many people.
Well, I have a pretty good memory, and like I said, I just try to always, it doesn't have to be all the time. But even if it's once a year, even if it's twice a year, how you doing? Happy holidays, happy birthday. Like I said, these small things that people take for granted go a long way.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a week ago, I sent a text out to some women in my life that I feel like are light and I'm just so grateful for. And I wanted to remind them that they are that girl and they have this incredible light that people see even if they may not be feeling it. And I got such a great response from sending out that text because it was so random. It was like on a Sunday morning, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna make some people feel good because it makes me feel good, right? To make people feel good. And the response was resounding. So I love that. I think you're so spot on with checking in with people when you don't need something.
And I think there's one more, Victoria, that sounds simple and it's going to sound cliche, but it's worked for me, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But people don't do it, especially nowadays. I treat people the way I like to be treated. It sounds simple, but it's really effective if you're really moving like that all the time, because I think that people have lost that and they need to know, oh, Victoria's this, Vlad is that, and they just can't be like that generally all the time, and people can see the difference. And we come from that Latino hospitality, that's such a nature to us, but I feel like we're losing that now sometimes because we're worried about clout, status, and you only do that to certain people. And it's just like, no, if you did that to the majority of people you ran into, people always remember, like you said, damn, Victoria remember me, treated me like this. People never forget how you make them feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think it was Maya Angelou that said that. Like, people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. So I love that. So just to make this very clear for people, if people want to get in and invest in some way and they have like $500 to $1,000, is there a place for them to go?
Well, there are different ways. Like there's like I remember the other day I had somebody on my podcast that had like the whole crowd raise thing. There's some companies in cannabis that are doing crowd raising where you can do stuff like that. But aside from that, like for the most part, for small investments like that, it's gonna be more like they have cannabis stocks and stuff like that. But that was the kind of like the two ways that I've seen right now for small investments like that, like crowd fundraising, and also like different stocks they have.
Or you can use that to go to a conference and learn something, shake some hands, meet some people, volunteer, right? Get into the groove and get into the mix of things. So there's a question that I wanted to ask you about the dispensary because I had a colleague in the space of yours, Christine De La Rosa.
Oh, yes, the homie. Shout out to her.
Yes.
The people.
Yes. She's on the manufacturing side.
Yes.
And we had an interesting conversation about the difference between the manufacturing side as well as the dispensary side. So I would love your view, because her view was she believes that on the manufacturing side, there's more opportunity there because you're actually the supplier now. So what are your thoughts on the difference between being on the manufacturing side versus the dispensary side?
My thoughts is that they're both can be massively profitable. It's really about not going for which one you think is profitable. It's about which one are you and your team more skilled at, because we know that there's, so if I had to compare it to alcohol, it's two different ways. Do you want to be Seagram's is some huge alcohol distributor, which just takes a whole different set of skills, or do you want to be Tao Group? They're both massively successful, but two totally different sets of skills. So I think it's the same thing in cannabis. It's just that right now it's in its infancy. And it's funny you mentioned that the way that New York set it up, because New York being the financial capital of the world, they really were worried. They really went hard with the antitrust to make sure that it doesn't get monopolized, because New York's a place, if they don't, that it get monopolized fast. So what did they do? If you're on the retail side, if you're on the retail, delivery, a consumption lounge side, you cannot be on the manufacturing, growing, and testing side. You have to be on one side or the other, unless you're a medical full vertical, there was only like 10 of those. Then you can do everything from soup to nuts. So what that does is it helps everybody be the best at what they are. They got that model from alcohol, because like Grey Goose can't own a liquor store. Tito's can't own a liquor store. So it's that kind of model. So
I didn't even know that. Okay.
So they're both can be tremendously profitable. I think it's more about like you doing what you and your team are skilled at and what you love doing, instead of like just going into it because this side is more profitable. And I always discourage people from doing that, because the truth is, this is the most highly regulated industry in the world, because it's not federally legal. You have to go through like ridiculous amounts of things to pull this off. So if you don't have a higher why and purpose than money, it's going to be very difficult to succeed, because there's so much you have to go through. You have to have, like, of course, money's one of them, but you have to have other things too that's pushing you, because if not, there's a lot of other industries you could do easier things. You have to look at it like something bigger than you.
When we first met a few years ago, you were talking to me about life as a single dad. So how is that? How are you managing that? How are you managing running this business, raising a little girl? I know now you got a boo thing, so you're not single no more. How were you managing when you were single and you were trying to balance it?
Well, it's really hard, but that's my why and my purpose, my daughter. So, I always try to make sure that I make time for that. But I also had at the time a living nanny that helped me for like the first 8 years of her life. So that helped me a lot. Without that nanny, shout out to Josefina, there wouldn't be a Happy Monkey, because she allowed me to be able to go hard with my business and then know that I had home taken care of.
Yeah.
So that really played a big role, but it's still hard to balance, but I try to, how can I put it, make it where like I have my daughter trained that instead of like material things are the reward, time and experiences are the reward. So I always try to take out time to have different experiences with her, take her to Broadway shows, take her on vacations, take her to do different things instead of like, toma, te compré esto, so we can have always these memories and these experiences. And that's what moves me. And now she's 9 years old, and it's just like, what do you do, Daddy? Well, I'm an entrepreneur. I own cannabis is medicine that I'm helping heal the community. And, I've taken her to events and, so now it's like, that's another thing that I think that people don't understand, like how big this is for our community. Like so many people that have the records like I have, it's so hard to find something redeeming that brings your morale back for you to be able to go to your especially in Latino families, to go back to your family like, look, I'm doing something positive for the community now. And I think that is so important, because our communities have been so devastated by so many different issues that we really need that, because like that's how we rebuild and repair the harm that has been done.
This is a really great segue to our Talk That Talk segment, where we wanted to address how cannabis is viewed within the community and how it's viewed as this like hard drug and this drug that's like gonna lead to your demise. And you just said the way you describe it to your daughter is as medicine. So can you talk to us about like the historical context around like why the community thinks this is like such a horrible drug, and maybe also to how we can start to shift our minds around this?
That is a great question, and like that's part of what I'm looking forward to now when we go uptown to Inwood, is because the information and the education has not gone up there. We have to remember there's been 80 years of propaganda and Nancy Reagan saying your brain on drugs and all these different things. And then when you add the fact back in the Latino countries, DRP, all these different countries, it was even deeper with Catholicism, and they don't see any difference with it. They look at like, you use heroin, you use crack, you use cannabis, all the same thing to them. So now we have the opportunity to show them like, no, this could even benefit you. I'll give you one example that I did this with, and I can't wait to educate people up there with it, like especially the older folks, la abuelita y lo abuelito. Living nanny, older lady, 60, 70 years old school Dominican, ya tu sabes, she's not with it. She had arthritis. So I come home with a salve, cannabis salve, and I give it to her. Toma, mira eso, te compré eso para la cosa. She goes, oh, eso me ayudó. I was like, eso era marihuana. She's like, ¿qué? ¿Cómo tú me vas a dar droga? And then now I help change her perspective, because that's another big issue in our community. That's the elephant in the room, Victoria. A lot of our old folks are on pharmaceuticals. There's nothing worse than that. And this is a healthy alternative for if they need to go to sleep, if they have aches and pains, but nobody's taking out the time. Like you said, it's already hard enough to explain to older folks. Now we have to go to our older folks and meet them where they are and explain to them in their language. And there's not many people that could do that. And I'm looking forward to doing that and having different people come through, experts, and educating people on the benefits of the endocannabinoid system, how it's saving lives from people that have cancer, how it's saving lives from people that have children with epilepsy and catch seizures. And like I said, this information is not reaching our communities, and I really look forward to being that bridge to really help them see like how this can not only be an economic benefit, this can be a medical benefit and an alternative to opioids and pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to have a conversation with my abuelita or with my tia, how do I approach them? How do I break it down to them in such a way where they're able to like internalize it? Because they got all the preconditioning, right? That's been passed down generation to generation. So how do I have that conversation?
I think that, like I said, you got to have it you got to start with the medicinal benefits and show people evidence of like, mira, esto no es about smoking and getting high. This is like saving lives. Like, you know, people don't even know the options that are out there. Like, they don't know that there's salves. They just think that smoking is the only form of consumption, and that there's edibles that have CBN that help you go to sleep instead of using Ambien, which we know is not good. And I think in that way is how we start the conversation. Like, you are on these pharmaceuticals. Have you looked at the side effects? I think making the comparison, and I'm not a doctor, but like, you do your research. Everybody has it on their phone. You go to YouTube and you look at what it's doing. And I think that's a good way to start the conversation before we get into anything deeper, because, you know, that is like I don't think they even look at it as medicine. So I think that changes, like, starts combating some of that stigma of like, eso tú estás fumando droga.
Yeah, I think the verbiage we use is so important. So I love that you're describing it as medicine. One of the ways that I've introduced it to my family is, so my dad, he, you know, his knees, he's 81. So he's feeling all the feels. And so I got him like a cream to put on his arm, on his shoulder. And he was like, oh, wow, this feels good. And that's when I broke it to him. I was like, oh, yeah, well, that's got cannabis in it. Like, that's how it was made. And then it started a conversation because now he was already like bought in and he was like, oh, wow, really? And then it was like an opportunity to like talk about other things, etc. So that could be another way to bring it up is like meet them where they are and give them something that'll help them alleviate symptoms that they're experiencing.
And then, like I said, the other perspective is like, that the other thing that the last thing they remember about cannabis, especially in our communities, is like somebody was getting arrested. Somebody was getting shot. This is also the trauma that is associated with cannabis, especially in our communities. So now for them to see like, no, look, there's a security. You have to show ID that you're 21 and over. This cannabis was lab tested. It has no chance of having fentanyl or anything else in it. I think that the safety of the legal cannabis thing also is going to help alleviate those traumas and that PTSD from all that bad stuff that happened from the war on cannabis is also going to help.
That's a great point. There are a lot of people who are managing through the trauma, especially communities of color. If you think about like the lack of resources that they were receiving, all of that like kind of like bruise up and it's like, what? Like all I remember is the ugly parts. I don't know any of the good parts. So I love that you guys are educating the community and putting the people first, as you said. So I have a question that I've been dying to ask you. Where does the Happy Munkey name came from? Like, where does it come from?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So the funny thing is that my partner Ramon Reyes, he's always been on his spiritual shit, and his spirit animal was a monkey. So he already had that. And then, like, when you notice and you look around, now that I tell you, you look at a lot of cannabis brands that come from Black and brown communities, it's always like gangster monkey, it's like real aggressive. And it's just like, we didn't want that energy. We looked around at the events and stuff we're doing, like, we're making people happy. And then we added that. That's how it came up, Happy Munkey. You know what I mean? Because it's like, that's what we're selling happiness. We're not selling gangster and, you know what I mean? Like, because like you said, language matter, names matter. And we wanted to make sure that the name and the brand is like, just exudes positivity and happiness instead of like, we already had enough for the doom and gloom. The name doesn't have to have that.
Yeah. And you also spell monkey differently.
With a U.
Yeah, what's that about?
Oh, that is also for intellectual property reasons because, you got to make sure that you don't get caught up. And, as you blow up, bigger companies come and say, oh, we were the first Happy Munkey with an O, stuff like that,
Smart. So tell the people, where can they learn more? How can they get involved?
Well, you can go to our website, happymonkey.com, and a lot of things for you to pick from there. Not only do we have a podcast, not only do we have a newsletter we put out every Monday, but also we will be hiring a good amount of people. So if you ever wanted to be, because sometimes, as Victoria said, you want to get involved. Sometimes you want to learn from an organization from within. So we're going to be hiring everything from cleaning to bud tenders to managers. So please leave your information there. If you ever wanted to be part of a new emerging industry, a movement that really cares about the people, please leave your information there. And anything else, like Victoria mentioned, we want to be part of the solution, not the problem. So even if you just have any questions in general, please contact us. Check out what we got going on. And remember, we're coming soon to a theater near you. We don't do it for the clout. We do it for the culture. And remember, you're too blessed to be stressed. Things will get greater later. You just got to always choose happy.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and for everything that you're doing for the Cultura. I always love talking to you. I always feel like revitalized and vibrant and just like, yeah, like we got somebody on the inside, like leading the charge. So thank you for everything that you're doing and thanks for educating our community today. Guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Banking on Cultura. I'll see you on the next one. Mi gente, I've got the perfect freebie for you. So I just dropped a 17-page workbook to help you get your mind right, especially in this climate of so much uncertainty. So if you are an aspiring or current entrepreneur and you're just feeling stuck, you're not feeling too good about what the future holds, and all the turmoil, the politics, all of it is just throwing you off your game, this workbook is actually going to act as a journal for you. It covers goal setting, efficiency tips, how to manage your time, financial management tips, strategies on how to wrap your head around the next big thing that's coming down the pipeline to bring you consistent revenue in your business. It covers what you should be doubling down on in terms of your well-being, and it is just my favorite jam-packed journal full of marketing and sales strategy to help you get clarity, but most importantly, to help you secure the big bag. So make sure to tap on the link in the show notes. I've linked it there so that you guys can get really clear on the top hacks that you can put into play in 2024 to set yourself up for success. I hope you love it. Mi gente, I need your help. Look, the real game behind podcasts is we need to really understand our demo, aka you, our audience, so that when we go out to sponsors who help us put on this amazing show and deliver this content to you, that they can clearly understand who we serve and what is significant to you and what you value. And the only way for us to get that information is for you to give it to us. So we just created this survey. I'll put it in the show notes. It will take you less than 3 minutes, literally, but it will be so helpful for us to get a better understanding of what it is that you care about, what's important to you, what do you value, so that when we're out in these streets trying to secure the big bag and get sponsors for this show, they know exactly who our audience is and what you care about. So we can bring you the best products, we can bring you the best organizations that are out here serving the cultura, the community, you. So please take a moment and fill out the survey. I'll link it in the show notes. Appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to leave me a comment. Make sure to subscribe. If you're listening on the audio streets, make sure to leave us a review. And I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Till next time, guys.